Hi guys, and welcome to another video with myself KD, and today I'm going to be talking to you again around 1v1 Huns, but this time I'm going to be talking to you about investing in an early economy. So, investing in an early economy can be vitally important to the success of a game in both 1v1 Huns and other Civ matchups, simply because if you fail to deliver in this area, it can slow down the pressure you're applying to your opponent, but it could also mean that the opportunity to defeat your opponent is missed at that critical time, because you can't output the military needed, and it could even put you in a position that you're unable to fight back because your economy is either too small or you're simply gaining resources too slowly to make a real difference, meaning it's a good game for you. So what does an early economy look like? Okay. So at the beginning of your game, your primary focus is going to be on your military structures. So, the first thing you're going to be doing is looking at your stables, then onto your barracks, your archery ranges, etc. Right? But once these are built and you're preparing for battle, you will need to then put time aside for, beginning to make an economy. So what's nice about early economy is that for the large part of this, it simply means putting down town centres near to your resources, and then just letting your villagers get on with doing what they do best, which is just building them. And I'm going to come to that in a second, but essentially you also want to ensure that the first batch of town centres are placed around gold and also around wood as your priority, and then obviously producing villagers upon completion around these town centres as well. But how many of these town centres do you actually put down? Well, you need to have at least 2 town centres next to your main gold, and this should be really sort of the first set of town centres that you put down, because your main gold pile is going to be the most important resource that you have at the beginning of the game. So after that, guys, variance comes down to you somewhat. For me personally, I will put down as many as 4 town centres next to wood spots, and then I'll place those towards the back and to the side of my base, really prioritising places where it's easy to defend against any raids and attacks. For example, in this game, the enemy here is Berry Bush, sort of on the left-hand side of the map here. So I'm going to be looking at wood spots. Perhaps 2 around this wood spot and 2 around this wood spot, or maybe even 1 down here tucked away in the corner, just to keep it a little bit sparser in case I did get raided or attacked. So I won't put town centres down beside stone, just to make you aware. I will not do that. If you end up creating sort of more town centres, to accommodate, so say for example you put 2 extra ones there by stone, you're really at risk of overproducing too many villagers, and this can become pretty problematic for you. And this is because as your villager population increases, it also then decreases the total number of military units that you actually have at your disposal. So that means that whilst you think you have, a really good advantage in resources because you've got so many villagers being output, and it may well be that you do actually have that over your opponent, you're going to continue to fight losing battles because you're outnumbered. So for example, say I had 150 villagers and only 50 military units, then that's probably going to end up in me resigning due to wasted units in fights up against 80, 90 or 100. And I'm going to be discussing, by the way, guys, about balance of units in a future video, and I do want to talk about that in definite more detail, so you guys can get a better overview. But for other players, producing on economy can be better served by doing this in a different way, and that includes, putting down, say, for example, 2 or 3 town centres onto wood, and then 1 or 2 on food, and then spamming farms around it. So when villages are then produced, for example, if I was to build, oh sorry, that's a granite mine. If I was to build a town centre here, one of the things that they might do, I'm quite careful in the way I put farms around town centres. It's just the way I like to do it. But some people literally just go like this. Everybody knows the saying, "Dan farms," right? But this is how some players prefer to do it, and you might choose to do 2 of those, like I just mentioned, and put farms all around it, blah blah blah, and then you might just choose that once they're built. So for example, in this town centre, oh sorry, no, I had cheat on. Better to show you over here. Is then to queue up units onto a particular farm. And that to some people is better. So when these are produced, they waypoint them onto these farms, then they're automatically seeded, and then other villagers will then go around and start to seed other farms nearby. There is obviously an exception to this, which is one personally I don't like, which is why I'm very clear about the way in which I place farms around a town centre. Is that if they're too sparse, say for example the waypoint comes to here, after a while sometimes the villagers themselves start to no longer recognise nearby farms that are ready to seed, and that just means you get a gathering of villagers. You might even see it if I just keep my viewpoint poised where it is now. But and then that does nothing for economy, of course. It only serves to basically increase the total number of idle villagers that you've got at any one time, and then that means that when you do check the number of idle villagers that you've got, you are then potentially having to go, put a lot more back to work, which I personally find can be pretty annoying. So that's personally why I do it in a different way. But just to recap then, so you want to allow 2 town centres always for main goal, guys. Not more than 2. You don't go for 3 or do any other variances like 1. 2 is what you want, and up to 4 town centres on wood, or with variants depending on the ways you guys like to do it. You could look at 2 or 3 onto wood, automatically waypointing onto lumber, and then one or 2 on food, with farms all being spammed around them. Personally, guys, I opt for the whole little and often sort of way of doing it, sort of motto if you want to call it, because within those small windows that you're going to have whilst you're fighting those battles, it would enable me, for example, the time to check on my woodcutters and to see how they're doing, or it would indeed, check on my woodcutters and then perhaps put them onto farms. So, for example, let me see, right, if I was to grab these villagers here and I'll put them on this wood here, just let me do the cheat so that they build that really quick. Then what I would then do is just waypoint on that. In fact, let's just say that these villagers were built and then getting to work on these wood. So let's say this town centre's been up for a minute or 2. Then what I do is I'd be like, okay, I'm going to start needing food now. So the little and often motto is that I would just take, like, say 5 or 6 off of wood, and then I would literally just maybe plonk down a mill as well, just so I know I can get the refresh on the farms, and then I would just leave them to it. And because I've counted 6, because when you highlight them you can see how many villagers, like I can see I've got 5 there, then I know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then another mill if you want it, and then that to me is a bit of a tidier kind of eco, and it just better places your farms, and then you're not really having to worry too much. And of course your town centre is just continuing to build wood, and if you need more, obviously you can compensate. You can just build a couple more villages from there and onwards. So that's personally just how I go about it. Although somehow it was just that he seeded this farm over here. I was like, what? Why is this one blank? But that's one way you can do it. So others like to set waypoints though on both food and wood, and you can see here, that problematic thing that I was telling you about earlier, where units start to gather when they no longer can kind of recognise seeded farms. It's a pretty close proximity that they start to not being able to recognise those. But it's down to you. You might want to go back around your idle villages and see that those guys are just kind of stood there not doing anything, and then choose to put them onto farms or whatever, or wood, etc. Also, this kind of style, this kind of farms everywhere does, give you a little bit more time, especially if you're a newer player, to focus back on the battle, which I do think is a prevailing point here. That you do have very kind of finite windows of opportunity to be checking back on what's happening with the battle, and that can serve, well, this way in which I've just shown you can serve as a way in which you'll be able to do that, and you can leave it to kind of self-produce in a way, with occasional prompting, and you can also as well change the waypoint on your farms to solve the gathering issue. If you're checking around in regular intervals, I could just literally put those back to work there and then just switch the waypoint. So that's definitely something to consider. And then there are also times when you will have occasion to look at your economy as well, but those are going to be a lot of the time it's going to come down, guys, to practice and experience as to when you can do that. Personally, as a general rule of thumb, the one that I use is that you want to ensure that your army disengages momentarily whilst running them back for a brief moment. So say, for example, I was in a battle over here, just imagining loads of paladins and cavalry archers and halberdiers, and I'm like, and I can see them doing really, really well, and then I might just pull them back for a second, literally just grab them, push them back to a defensive point, maybe a castle there, or just to bring them back to where more of my army is. And in those split seconds, I'm going to be using those hotkeys, talking about speed and control in the previous video, going around these town centers really quickly, checking out my units, and then re-engaging them back into battle if I felt that that was necessary. There are going to be times when there's no danger where you don't need to do that, such as when your opponent is greatly disadvantaged or they're actually nearing defeat. So you're not going to unnecessarily disengage your army, but this is something to consider. So really, guys, this was just an overview of how to actually go about early economy. There is one thing that I just wanted to say about stone. I know I mentioned earlier in the video, not putting town centers down by stone. You can, by the way, just click on your town center and right click on it. You've got villagers that are coming out from here. Where are they going to go? And they can occupy the stone points. If you need more, you can build it from your main town center out. It's a really one that I love, which I've seen players of old do, and I really like it. Just a granite mine by them and just queuing town villagers from there out to stone should you need them. It stops you from overloading, as I mentioned, in villages. But this is really just a cap on early economy and what to do and how to do it and how much of what and when. And one fundamental thing, because I'm not going to talk about balance specifically in this video, but I will break it down in a later one. But the main thing is just to be conscious that it's going to take time for your economy to catch up. So when you're at dropping down to 8,000 food, realistically think that's more like half that, like 4,000 food, because ultimately you're going to use that resource so quick that by the time it takes to catch itself back up again, you're going to be on nearly empty. So you need to kind of start it earlier rather than later, which is why I'm talking early economy on here for you. And I think the better you can get with this early economy, the stronger you're going to be in games, and the more that you practice having an early economy and the benefit to you, I think that ultimately, as I mentioned, the better the player that you're going to become. And ultimately, if you do find that you're depleting in one particular resource, then bump it up a little bit. You're going to get a general feel for if you're depleting too much on food, or too much on stone, or too much on gold, or too much on wood, etc. So just bear that in mind. Anyway, guys, I hope you've really enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my channel, like, comment. I really do appreciate all your support. It's just been great over the last few days that I've been running these videos. I've had some really great comments from you guys, and it's really positive, and it makes me just want to make more of these. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and please check in for more.